Right beside you, chapter 25. Richard, I'm sorry. Don't have any champagne in the house to make a toast, I said. Just as I was about to speak again, my landline rang. It was Lavina. What's up? I greeted. You tell me, is he still there? She whispered. For my own amusement and for Richard's, I hit the speaker button for this call too. I smothered a giggle. Yes, he is. Whoever he is, he's been there quite a while. He's spending the night, I explained. What? It's not what you think. He gave me a ride home from work. So many streets in this neighborhood are closed for I don't know how long. I told him he could spend the night. I looked at Richard and he winked. I know. I had a date coming over this evening and he had to cancel for the same reason. Anyway, I was looking out my window when you got here with him. He walks like a good man. I'm sure he is. Listen, I really can't talk now. I'll call you tomorrow. I'm going to sit by my phone until you do. I hung up and giggled. How does a good man walk? Like me, I guess, Richard laughed. I heard a noise in the hallway. When I turned around, Grandma Lucy was peeping around the corner. You can come back out if you want to. She trotted over to us with a grin on her face. I accepted the proposal, I stated proudly. Yay! She puckered her lips and kissed the top of my head. Then she shook Richard's hand. By the way, there ain't never been no divorce in our family. Good night, y'all. Grandma Lucy did a jig like shuffled out of the room humming Oh Happy Day, her favorite gospel tune. Richard and I sat up all night. We talked about any and everything that entered our minds. One of the most important decisions we'd made was that I would move into his house after we exchanged vows. But the subject we discussed that was even more important was that we both wanted to have a child together as soon as possible. Raising kids is not easy, but I wouldn't mind having at least a couple more, he admitted. I love even more, I said without hesitation. During a lull in the conversation, Richard wrapped his arm around my shoulder. Nobody is going to believe how our relationship developed. Well, what do you mean? Do you know how corny it was for me to ask you to help me pick out a ring for another woman instead of coming clean and letting you know everything from the get-go? It sounds like something you'd see in a Christmas TV movie on the Hallmark Channel. I'd read back and gasped. You watch those movies? He nodded. They're not the kind I usually watch, but my girls got hooked on them last year. I watch and record every new movie first to see if they are age appropriate. Well, I've seen at least a dozen of those movies, and I've never seen anything unsuitable for teenagers, I said firmly. I haven't either. I've even enjoyed a few, Richard admitted. We laughed. I've done more laughing with him in the last few days than I've done with everybody else in weeks. You know, our story will give our friends, co-workers, and family something to talk about for years to come. I gave him a thoughtful look. We don't have to tell everybody the whole story, especially how cat and mouse we acted before we finally revealed our feelings to each other. And if we tell them about the ring thing, we'll never hear the end of it. And all they need to know is that they want to spend the rest of our lives. We want to spend the rest of our lives together. It was 9:15 a.m. Now I had never gone without sleep for more than a whole day in my life, and I wasn't the least bit sleepy. Enough snow had been cleared off the streets in my area for traffic to resume. After 2 cups of strong coffee and another passionate kiss, Richard left. I called Lorena back and told her everything. She squealed with delight and said hopefully, maybe I'm next. I called up my brother and told him the news. He and his wife were ecstatic about it and couldn't wait to attend the wedding. I dialed Pam's number next. She was as dumbfounded as I was when I told her that I never suspected that the ring Richard wanted to help him select was for me. Val, that's so romantic and original. When you told me he asked you to pick out an engagement ring for another woman, I didn't know what to make of it, but I never expected this. After she stopped giggling and expressing how happy my news had made her, I scolded her for telling Richard that I was in love with him. Oh, hush. Just like I told him, you didn't tell me not to, she snapped. And just think what might have happened if I hadn't. You and he might have gone to the grave still single. You ought to thank me. Pam, thank you. That's better. Even with Grandma Lucy skittering about and jabbering away nonstop about things like the names for the children I planned to have and how often she could visit, I began to feel drowsy at around 10 o'clock. Before I could get up from the kitchen table where I'd eaten a bowl of oatmeal that Grandma Lucy had cooked, Richard called, "Hello, beautiful." Hearing him call me beautiful gave me goosebumps. "Good morning," I said shyly. "I hope you didn't have too much trouble getting home." "Ah, it was rough, but I made it." He paused and I heard some mumbling in the background on his end. "My girls are here. Do you mind if I put on the speaker?" "Not at all," I said quickly. "Hello, Felicia. This is Marva. And Carol." They sounded cheerful, but I could still feel my chest tightened. "Hello, girls. I guess your father broke the news about us." "Yup, and it's about time," Marva chirped. "You'll really like him when you get to know him." I was tempted to confess that I really liked him for years, but I saw no reason to go into that. "Some nights he snores like a moose," Carol warned. "Mommy used to wear earplugs when I went to bed. I'll buy you a bunch before the wedding." "He's forgetful and he tells lame jokes," Marva tossed in. "I don't know if I snore, but I'm forgetful and I tell lame jokes too," I said with a lump in my throat. We all laughed. It pleased me to know that Richard's daughters were so receptive. Richard and I spoke on the telephone several more times Saturday and Sunday, but when I woke up Monday morning, I wondered if I dreamed the whole thing. The beautiful ring on my finger squashed my concerns. When I boarded the commuter bus Monday morning, Richard and Pam looked up at me with Cheshire cat grins on their faces as they sauntered down the aisle. "Hello, Mrs. Grimes," Pam started with a familiar mischievous expression on her face. "Don't jump the gun. I'm not there yet," I told her. I flopped down beside Richard, bumping his knee with mine. "Hello," I said to him. "Hello, Mrs. Grimes," he said in a low voice. I almost melted into the seat. It was an interesting week. We had planned to announce our engagement at the Christmas luncheon, but by 9 a.m., almost everybody had heard the news. Co-workers swarmed into my office like locusts to congratulate me. Even the young secretaries who had been flirting with Richard for years, they were wondering when you two would get together. We were wondering when you two would get together, Sandy gushed. She stood in the doorway of my office with Mary Beth and Ramona in tow. 3 other co-workers had left a few minutes earlier. I did a double take. "What made you girls think Richard and I were going to get together?" I asked, looking from one face to another. "Come on, boss lady, we're not blind. I've never seen a man look at a woman the way Richard looks at you," Ramona hollered. "I don't know about the rest of our co-workers, but we knew it was just a matter of time before you and Richard got serious," Mary Beth chimed in. "You two were made for each other." I heard similar comments the rest of the week. Our office Christmas luncheon was a big hit. We ordered more than enough Chinese, Italian, and soul food to accommodate the 90 people who showed up. But it didn't take long before every single container was empty. At every office event, Sam would encourage people to share any information they thought their coworkers would like to know. One of of the technicians Richard supervised raised his hand and literally ran to the podium at the front of the room. He revealed that he'd be transferring to the Home Office in February. The job Richard had turned down had been offered to him, and he had accepted it immediately. One of the trainers announced that his son had recently passed the bar exam. A secretary in the payroll department shared the news that she was in the process of purchasing her first home. I'm sure everybody already knows, but do you still want to go up and formally announce our engagement? I whispered in Richard's ear. We occupied a spot in the back of the room. Of course, he answered, bobbing his head to an instrumental version of Joy to the World playing in the background. When the secretary finished sharing her news, Richard and I held hands and started to inch forward. But before we could plow through the crowd, Sam trotted up to the podium. I'm sure you'll all love to hear what I have to say. He rolled his eyes up and cleared his throat. This year, our office will be closed for the whole week of Christmas, starting with Christmas Eve. That'll be my gift to you all. Nobody reacted until they heard what he said next. And all 5 days off will be with pay. People whistled, cheered, and stormed like they were at a rodeo. Sam was beaming like a lighthouse. He rambled on a few more minutes about things of no interest to anyone except himself. When he finally stopped talking, he looked directly at Richard and me. Do we have any other announcements? By now, almost everybody present was fidgeting and checking the time. Over here, Richard yelled. We held hands and skidded up to the podium. Felicia and I are getting married next year. The crowd cheered even louder this time. Then Richard hauled off and kissed me like I've never been kissed before. Like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Bye-bye.